Whether you're new to the idea of making money on the net or whether you're an old hand, there is one truth about you and our business. However well you're doing at the moment, you could always do better, right? After all, I don't know of many business owners, online or in the real offline business world, who wouldn't like their businesses to be more profitable. How ironic it is, then, that a superb free source of additional revenue and profit exists right at this moment, sitting there under the nose of every online entrepreneur. This is a source of profit that is freely available to all. What's more, there are literally thousands, if not millions, of source materials that can be used to add hundreds of dollars to your bottom line in return for little or no effort. As the name of this video series probably suggests, I'm talking about public domain content materials here, content that you can use to boost the profitability of your business starting right now. So let's get the ball rolling by defining exactly what we're talking about when we refer to public domain materials in connection with online marketing. Wherever we look and whatever we do, we are all, each and every one of us, surrounded by public domain property 24 hours a day. Anything that can be freely used by the public, you, me, and the next person, without fear of legal ramifications is effectively public domain property. For example, your local park is owned by your city or town for the benefit of all its citizens. It's therefore in the public domain. Of course, when referring to public domain property in terms of online marketing, we're not suggesting that you sell the local park. Instead, for marketers, the term public domain materials usually refers to intellectual property rights to creative content materials. Hence, for us, public domain materials can be books, movies, TV shows, paintings, photographs, music, and images. All of these are waiting for someone like you to pick them up before turning them into a profitable product. I'll highlight lots of places where you can freely access these materials later. I'll also explain the many different ways that you can make a lot of money out of using them. Before doing so, however, it's important to define exactly what public domain materials are, because if you don't get this bit right, you risk breaking the law. Here's why. A lot of creative content materials are protected for their author or creator by copyright, a legal right to call their materials their own. This means that no one else can use these materials as is unless they comply with whatever rules are attached to that particular copyright on pain of prosecution. In this respect, the exact copyright terms can, to an extent, be dictated by the product's creator or author. For example, they may allow certain parts of the content to be used as long as the usage is attributed, or they may make you ask for prior permission before using their content. However, if the product's creator does not impose specific terms, the assumption is that all modern intellectual property is copyrighted unless it's stated otherwise. Hence, even if a content piece does not say copyright or carry the copyright symbol, the little circle with a C in the middle that you can see on the screen here, the creator's rights to it are still protected by law. This has been the assumption in American law ever since 1989 and remains so to this day. This is a very important point to understand in relation to online content. Just because something is published on the net doesn't in any way suggest that you can use it as you see fit. On the contrary, even if it doesn't say that this intellectual property is copyrighted, you should never take the risk of using it without knowing what you're doing. There are very specific rules about what content is freely available in the public domain and what is not, and you must follow them. More precisely, the term public domain materials is defined by the legal system of the country where those materials were originally created. Thus, the legal position pertaining to content that was originally produced in America is governed by US copyright laws. Those materials that were originally from the UK are subject to the British legal system, and so on. Of course, the development and growth of the Internet over the past couple of decades has blurred legal lines and boundaries. For instance, content materials from America are instantly accessible from Australia and Europe, and vice versa. So which set of copyright rules apply? I would suggest that you stick with the simplest rule set. Unless you're willing to seek an extremely expensive legal opinion, run with the obvious by following the copyright rules of the legal jurisdiction where the content was produced. It's also a fact that the majority of public domain content currently available on the net was produced or created in the USA. Hence, it's the American definition of what is and is not public domain content that we're going to cover most in this video. The rules that define what is and what is not copyrighted in the USA are actually quite complex, as several factors have to be taken into account. For instance, there are sometimes different copyright laws applied to written or audio content, while there are also specific rules applied to works by foreign nationals and those of US citizens living abroad. There's a comprehensive breakdown of what is and is not protected by copyright laws on this page of the Cornell University website, which is copyright.cornell.edu/resources/publicdomain.cfm. For the sake of simplicity, however, we can broadly assign intellectual property that's not copyright protected into one of four groups. Anything that was produced in the USA before 1923 was never copyright protected and is therefore in the public domain. Hence, the works of Benjamin Franklin, Walt Whitman, and early Disney movies are public domain materials that are available to anyone. Anything that was published between 1923 and 1963 with a copyright notice is no longer protected unless the copyright has been renewed. Works that were published between 1923 and 1977 without a copyright notice are in the public domain. Any work that was published between 1978 and the 1st of March 1989 without notice or registration within 5 years is also public domain content. One very interesting public domain category that's missed by most who write about this subject covers all works produced by government officials and employees in the line of their duties. In addition, there are several oddities. Works published by any citizen of Turkmenistan or Uzbekistan before 1973 is, for example, in the public domain in the USA, but the rules I've just mentioned cover most standard situations and scenarios. As you can probably figure out from them, a lot of public domain content is not exactly bang up to date. If, however, you dismiss the value of these materials because they're a little older, you're making a very big mistake. You'll see why in the next video.